There are moments in life when heaven leans closer to you, when something begins to stir in your spirit and you can sense something is about to change. What if I told you that right now, God is aligning everything to transform your life, and there are signs that prove it? My beloved, have you ever felt uneasy in your spirit, even when everything around you seems normal? You can't explain it, but deep down you sense something shifting. That restlessness, that divine stirring, is not confusion, it is preparation. When God is about to change your life, He first changes the atmosphere within you. Listen carefully. Before every divine breakthrough, there is a divine discomfort. Before every new chapter, there is a holy stirring. And before every elevation, there is an invitation to trust God beyond what you can see. So, don't be quick to rebuke the shaking, because the shaking is often the sound of God rearranging your destiny. Stay with me, because before this message ends, you will recognize the very signs that God is using right now to lead you into your next level. When God is about to move in your life, one of the first things He does is disturb your comfort zone. He begins to shake the ground beneath the places you once stood firmly. The peace that once felt so stable suddenly becomes uneasy. The things that used to satisfy you begin to lose their flavor. It is not that something is wrong with you. It is that heaven has begun to move, and your spirit can feel the tremor before your eyes can see the change. God will never let you stay comfortable when your destiny is calling. The stirring of divine discontent is His way of saying, "You have stayed on this mountain long enough." There are times when you wake up and realize that what used to fulfill you no longer does. You go to the same job, talk to the same people, do the same routines, but there is an emptiness you cannot explain. That emptiness is not a curse. It is a divine signal. God uses dissatisfaction to draw your attention to the next assignment. The same place that once felt like a blessing now feels like a burden, not because it has lost its value, but because its purpose in your life has been completed. When you outgrow a season, it will no longer fit you comfortably. The Spirit begins to whisper, "It's time to move." Moses knew what that felt like. He was raised in Pharaoh's palace, dressed in royal garments, surrounded by luxury and power, yet something inside him was unsettled. He could not find peace among the pleasures of Egypt because his destiny was not in the palace. It was in the wilderness leading God's people. The palace became a place of discomfort because God was stirring the leader inside him. Sometimes God will disturb your comfort, not to punish you, but to position you. When He allows unease to rise within you, it is because He is preparing to reveal what He planted in you long ago. Many believers misinterpret divine discontent. They think that when they feel restless, it means they are doing something wrong. But often it means you are doing something right. You have grown too big for the place you are in. God knows that if He allows you to stay too long in a comfortable place, you will stop growing. Growth and comfort cannot live in the same room. When you pray for God to use you, you must also be ready for Him to unsettle you. He cannot enlarge your territory if you are not willing to leave your familiar surroundings. Every time God takes you higher, He first removes the pillows beneath your comfort. Consider Abraham. He was living peacefully in Ur of the Chaldees when God spoke to him. "Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you." There was no detailed map, no visible guarantee, only a word. To obey that kind of instruction, Abraham had to let go of comfort. But that very act of obedience opened the door for a generational blessing. God will always disrupt what is comfortable when He wants to introduce what is divine. You cannot embrace a new promise while holding on to an old security. The stirring of divine discontent is not a punishment, it is preparation. When a bird is ready to teach its young to fly, it begins to make the nest uncomfortable. The mother bird removes the soft feathers and exposes the sharp twigs beneath. The little bird feels restless and begins to move, not realizing that the discomfort is what pushes it to spread its wings. Likewise, God will sometimes remove the things that make you feel safe, not because He wants to hurt you, but because He wants you to soar. The moment you begin to feel restless, understand that God is preparing to expand your wings. You may notice people beginning to leave your life, doors closing unexpectedly, or situations that used to be easy suddenly becoming difficult. Do not rush to call it an attack. Sometimes it is divine rearrangement. God removes what you have outgrown. He closes doors because you have completed that assignment. If He did not close them, you might never step through the new ones He has prepared. It is human nature to cling to what feels familiar, even if it limits us. But God loves you too much to let comfort destroy your calling. Every great move of God begins with a moment of discomfort. Elijah sat by the brook Cherith, where God fed him with ravens and provided water. It was a place of miraculous provision, but one day the brook dried up. The God who had sent the water also allowed it to stop flowing. Why? Because the next assignment awaited in Zarephath. Sometimes the provision that once sustained you must dry up to push you toward the next miracle. When what used to work stops working, it is a sign that God is leading you to a new place of obedience. The drying brook is not your end, it is your transition. In moments of divine discontent, confusion often tries to set in. You may ask, God, what are you doing? Why do I feel like this? It is natural to question, but never mistake silence for absence. God does His most important work in the tension between what is and what is coming. That tension is the labor room of transformation. You are not being destroyed, you are being delivered. The pain of transition is the proof that something greater is being born within you. You might not see the full picture, but you can trust that the same God who stirred your heart is also guiding your steps. There will be people who do not understand your restlessness. They will say, why can't you just be satisfied? You have enough. But what they do not realize is that destiny has a voice. Once it calls, you cannot ignore it. The same spirit that disturbed Peter's sleep in prison, that compelled Paul to cross seas, that drew David from the fields to the throne, that spirit will not allow you to settle where you are not meant to stay. When heaven speaks, the soul cannot sit still. Divine discontent is the sound of your purpose knocking at the door of your heart. Sometimes this stirring manifests in practical ways. You may lose passion for what you once loved. Projects that once inspired you now feel empty. You may feel like your surroundings no longer match what God is saying inside you. Pay attention to that tension. It is the Spirit guiding you. When God begins to enlarge your vision, your old environment can no longer contain it. You start seeing possibilities that others around you can't see. You sense that something greater is coming, though you cannot name it yet. That's when faith becomes essential, to move even when you can't explain why. Divine discontent also tests your obedience. It is easy to follow God when you have all the details, but true faith begins when you step out without them. God rarely gives explanations, He gives instructions. And in the moment you obey, the next step unfolds. Every step of faith removes another layer of comfort. It is through that process that God refines your character. You learn to depend on Him, not on circumstances. You begin to understand that your peace is not in a place, it is in His presence. When you feel the stirring, do not suppress it. Many people silence the voice of transition by distracting themselves with business. They fill the void with noise, so they don't have to face the uncertainty of change. But if you quiet your soul long enough, you will realize that God is speaking in the stillness. The unease you feel is His invitation to intimacy. He is saying, "Come closer. I am about to show you something new." The Spirit's whispers often come wrapped in restlessness. The question is whether you will listen or resist. Every season of divine stirring has a purpose. God shakes you so that what cannot remain will fall away. He disturbs your routine to awaken your revelation. You are being prepared for something that eyes have not seen and ears have not heard. The discomfort is temporary, but the transformation it produces is eternal. What you feel right now is not the end of your peace. It is the beginning of your purpose. The soil of your heart is being turned over so new seeds of destiny can take root. Would you like me to continue this section seamlessly into the next part, the silent preparation, in the same tone and depth? When God is preparing to change your life, He often does His greatest work in silence. The moments when you cannot see His hand are often the moments when His hand is most active. The seasons that feel quiet, hidden, and uneventful are the very seasons where heaven is arranging the foundation for what you will soon walk into. It is human nature to assume that when God is silent, He is absent. But that is never true. God's silence is not a sign of distance. It is a strategy of preparation. When He hides Himself, it is because He is doing something too sacred to be seen prematurely. The silence of God is the workshop of destiny. There are times when you pray and nothing seems to move. You fast, you sow, you believe, yet there is no visible shift. Those are the moments that test the roots of your faith. Can you trust God when He gives you no explanation? Can you still believe when every sign around you says nothing is happening? It is easy to worship when the answers come quickly. But maturity in faith is forged when you must worship while waiting. God's preparation period is never wasted. It is the place where He forms your heart to carry the weight of what is coming. Joseph's story reveals this mystery so clearly. As a young man, he had dreams of greatness, dreams that showed him ruling, dreams that carried divine promise. But almost immediately after receiving the vision, he was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and forgotten in a prison. To human eyes, it looked like God had abandoned him, but heaven had only hidden him. Every silent year in that Egyptian prison was a year of preparation. God was shaping his character, teaching him to lead, molding him through humility. When the right moment came, in a single day, Joseph was lifted from the prison to the palace. The promotion looked sudden, but the preparation had been long. What seems like a delay is often the discipline of divine timing. In the silence, God deals with what words cannot. He refines motives, heals wounds, and strengthens faith. The unseen seasons are where God changes who you are before He changes where you are. If He gave you the blessing before you were ready, the blessing would break you. That is why God hides you. He hides you not to deny you, but to develop you. He hides you so that when the door opens, you will have the strength to remain standing. The preparation period may feel lonely, but it is sacred. Heaven is not ignoring you. Heaven is incubating you. There is something sacred about the hidden place. In the hidden place, you learn the sound of God's whisper. You learn to recognize His presence without visible signs. You learn to depend not on feelings, but on faith. David understood this. Before he ever wore the crown, he was alone in the field with sheep. No crowds, no recognition, no applause. Just him, his harp, and his God. While others saw a forgotten shepherd boy, heaven saw a future king in training. The Psalms we read today were birthed in that solitude. If David had not been faithful in the field, he would not have been ready for the throne. When God keeps you hidden, it is because He is building something within you that cannot be built in public view. Many people despise the waiting season because they think nothing is happening. But when a seed is planted, it must be buried before it can grow. The soil covers it, hides it from sight, and for a while, there is no evidence of life. Yet beneath the surface, something powerful is taking place. Roots are forming, structure is developing, life is expanding in the dark. If the seed could speak, it might say, "Why am I in the dark? Why am I surrounded by dirt?" But the darkness is not its end, it is its beginning. Likewise, when God places you in a season of silence, you are not being buried to die, you are being planted to grow. The unseen season is the most crucial part of your growth. In silence, God also separates you from distractions. There are moments when you want to move, but He says, "Be still." He does not want you to build on noise. He quiets your surroundings so that you can hear what truly matters. The more significant your calling, the longer your preparation will often be. Great callings require deep roots. God cannot trust you with public influence until He can trust you with private obedience. The measure of your unseen faithfulness determines the magnitude of your visible fruit. It is in the silent places that integrity is tested, patience is forged, and humility is perfected. Elijah experienced this in his own journey. After calling down fire from heaven on Mount Carmel, he found himself fleeing into the wilderness, exhausted and afraid. There, God did not speak to him through the earthquake, or the wind, or the fire, but in a still small voice. The voice of God is most often heard in stillness, not in spectacle. When life becomes quiet, when you no longer feel the rush of divine activity, it is an invitation to lean in closer. God whispers in silence because He wants intimacy. If you will listen in the quiet, you will receive direction for the next season of your life. During the silent preparation, patience becomes your greatest weapon. The enemy will try to convince you that God has forgotten you. He will use delay to plant doubt. But if you can resist that temptation and keep trusting, you will emerge stronger than before. Every person God has ever used greatly went through a period of hidden preparation. Noah built the ark for decades before the rain came. Moses spent 40 years in the desert before leading Israel. Even Jesus lived 30 years in obscurity before 3 years of ministry. Heaven always prepares in private before it reveals in public. The longer the silence, the greater the manifestation that follows. This season also reveals who you truly trust. When everything is quiet, you no longer have the applause of others to affirm you. You must stand on the word of God alone. It is in these times that you discover whether your faith is built on emotions or on revelation. If your worship depends on what you see, silence will destroy you. But if your worship depends on who God is, silence will deepen you. Every prayer you pray in the quiet is a seed. Every act of obedience, when no one notices, is an offering. Every tear you cry in secret is stored in God's bottle. Nothing is wasted. Heaven records it all. In the hidden season, God sometimes isolates you from people who cannot walk where you are going. It feels like rejection, but it is protection. The silence creates space for separation. You may not understand why certain relationships fade, why opportunities disappear, or why your circle grows smaller, but this is how God ensures that only those meant for your next chapter remain. Some people are not equipped to handle the weight of your calling. The silence removes what cannot stay, so that when the new season begins, you are surrounded by those who strengthen, not distract your purpose. When you find yourself in a season of silence, your greatest response is stillness and trust. You must learn to rest in God's timing. The same God who made the promise will fulfill it at the appointed time. The waiting is not about punishment, it is about alignment. God is aligning people, timing, and circumstances so that when your door opens, everything will fit perfectly. If you try to rush the process, you risk arriving unprepared. But if you allow God to finish His hidden work, you will walk into the blessing already equipped to handle it. There are days when you will feel invisible, unacknowledged, and overlooked. In those moments, remind yourself that heaven sees what men do not. God's eyes are on you even when no one else notices. He knows your labor, your prayers, your faithfulness. He watches you in the unseen. And at the right time, He will bring you into the light. You do not need to announce yourself. When the preparation is complete, the manifestation will announce you. Every promise has an appointed time, and every appointed time is preceded by a silent season. The waiting may be long, but the reward will be undeniable. When a woman is about to give birth, the pain intensifies. What once felt bearable becomes overwhelming. Her breathing changes, her focus narrows, and her entire body labors to bring forth what she has been carrying for months. The pain is not a sign of death, but a sign of life pushing through. The same principle operates in the spiritual realm. When God is about to change your life, the pressure increases. The challenges multiply. Everything seems to come against you all at once. But what you are experiencing is not destruction, it is delivery. The greater the pressure, the closer the promise. What you have been carrying in faith is about to manifest. Every new season is born through travail. Before God brings you into a new dimension, He must push you through a narrow passage. The womb of transformation is never wide or comfortable. It requires stretching, surrender, and faith that holds on when everything else is shaking. Just like a mother must trust that the pain will lead to joy, you must trust that your current pressure will lead to purpose. The contractions you feel in life, the sudden trials, the unexpected losses, the moments when everything seems to fall apart, are all working together to push you into what God has prepared. It hurts because you are close to the birthing moment. In the process of spiritual birth, God often allows what feels like chaos to unfold around you. Things that once worked stop working. Relationships shift. Doors that used to open easily now stay shut. It is in that place of uncertainty that God begins to reveal the new version of you. The old structure cannot hold the new blessing. Before God brings increase, He must break limitation. When the children of Israel stood at the edge of the Red Sea with Pharaoh behind them, it looked like disaster. Yet in that pressure, God made a way that no one had ever seen before. The sea parted because the people had reached the place where destiny demanded a miracle. The pain of pursuit became the platform for revelation. When you are on the verge of a divine change, there will be signs in your spirit before there are signs in your circumstances. You will feel a stirring, a deep inner knowing that something is shifting. Your prayers become more intense, your hunger for God increases, and your tolerance for spiritual complacency disappears. You find yourself craving the presence of God more than before. That is not random. It is the Spirit preparing you for what is to come. Whenever God is about to release a new season, He first increases your spiritual appetite. He feeds you with a vision that cannot be satisfied by your current surroundings. You begin to sense that there is more, and that sense is the birth pang of purpose. Faith is the womb of miracles. What you have been believing for, praying for, and holding on to in your heart is not lost. It is developing. Just because you cannot see it does not mean it is not growing. A seed in the soil is invisible, but it is alive. Likewise, the promises God placed within you are alive. You have been carrying dreams, callings, and assignments that heaven intends to bring forth at the right time. When that time comes, the spiritual environment around you begins to change. You may notice divine connections appearing out of nowhere, opportunities that align with what you have been praying for, and doors opening that you could never force open yourself. These are signs that the appointed time has arrived. However, before the manifestation, there is always resistance. Every promise faces opposition. The enemy senses that something is about to shift, and he does everything possible to discourage you. He attacks your mind, your confidence, and your peace. He whispers that it will never happen, that you misunderstood God, that you are wasting your time. Those lies grow louder the closer you get to breakthrough. When you face the fiercest battles, it is often because the enemy knows your time is near. But pressure is not a signal to quit. It is a call to push. Just as a mother pushes through pain because she knows a child is about to be born, you must push through discouragement because your destiny is about to emerge. The process of birth also involves isolation. During labor, the woman cannot rely on many voices. Too much noise distracts her from the rhythm of delivery. In the same way, when God is bringing you into a new season, He silences the unnecessary voices around you. He separates you from the opinions that could weaken your faith. You may feel alone, but that isolation is sacred. God shields you so you can focus on what He is doing inside you. The hidden moments of pushing are often the most powerful, because what is born in private will eventually be revealed in public glory. Sometimes the pain of transition makes you question everything. You wonder if you misheard God. You question why the promise seems delayed. But you must remember that the most intense labor comes right before delivery. When the night feels darkest, dawn is near. The pressure is the proof that God's hand is still on you. The very circumstances that seem to be breaking you are actually shaping you. Every tear, every test, every trial is forming the strength you will need to carry the blessing once it arrives. God never wastes pain. He transforms it into preparation. When your season changes, the way you hear God also shifts. The instructions He gives in one season may not fit the next. You must stay sensitive to His voice, ready to move when He says move, and ready to let go when He says let go. New seasons require new levels of obedience. Abraham had to leave his homeland to walk into his promise. Peter had to leave the boat to walk on water. Change always demands courage. It requires the willingness to trust God, even when the path ahead is unfamiliar. The new season is not meant to repeat the old. It is meant to reveal something you have never experienced before. As the birth of your new season approaches, there is also a spiritual alignment that takes place. People who are meant to walk with you will start appearing. Resources you once lacked begin to flow. Ideas that were dormant begin to awaken. The pieces start to fit together in ways that only God could orchestrate. It might seem sudden, but nothing is sudden to God. Every connection, every opportunity, every open door has been prepared in advance. The manifestation of the promise is simply the visible evidence of an invisible process that has been happening all along. In this stage, gratitude becomes a powerful weapon. When you praise God in the middle of pressure, you declare your faith in His promise. Thanksgiving breaks the spirit of despair and opens the atmosphere for divine intervention. When Paul and Silas sang in the prison, the chains fell off. Their praise created an environment for breakthrough. Likewise, your worship in the waiting prepares the way for the miracle. Gratitude turns labor into victory. It shifts your focus from the pain of the process to the purpose behind it. The birth of a new season also brings responsibility. What God is about to release into your life is not only for your blessing, but for the advancement of His kingdom. the new level of favor, the new opportunities, the new anointing, all come with a divine assignment. God changes your life not just so you can rise, but so you can lift others. The purpose of your transformation is to reveal His glory. Every trial you have endured becomes a testimony that strengthens others who are still in their labor. Your story becomes a signpost pointing others to hope. The spiritual birthing process requires surrender. You cannot control the timing, the method, or the outcome. You must yield to the hand of the One who knows the beginning and the end. Just as the mother must trust the rhythm of labor, you must trust the rhythm of grace. God knows exactly when you are ready. He will not bring forth the promise one moment too soon or one moment too late. Every contraction, every delay, every silence is synchronized with divine timing. When the moment arrives, everything will align perfectly, and what you have carried in faith will become visible reality. When that happens, you will realize that every tear was worth it. The nights of confusion, the seasons of silence, the battles that tested your strength, all of it was part of the process. The promise was never denied, it was developing. What felt like loss was actually labor. What looked like delay was divine design. The new season you are stepping into carries the evidence of God's faithfulness. You will look back and see that He was never absent, never late, never silent without purpose. He was shaping you, stretching you, and preparing you for the manifestation that is now at your door.